Good evening. Atma Namaste. Can you hear me? Welcome to this special session on health issues, primarily man-made health issues like our heart problem and stroke and related issues which can be preventable. We'll also discuss about salt, how it contributes, and people have questioned what happens to sodium levels in the blood if you don't take salt. Salt is available in a natural form in fruits, vegetables, even water. And what is the proof? For 14 years, I have not been taking added salt into the food and salt-free food, salt-free diet. My sodium levels are within range. And we want to have this topic presented by Dr. Surender Reddy Neravetla from Ohio, Springfield, director in cardiology, this heart surgery department in that area, and done maybe about 15,000 heart surgeries by now. Been involved in surgery, heart surgery for 45 years nearly now. So prevention is very important. Watch it's preventable is very important. Not only heart but other serious ailments are because of the certain our lifestyle and livelihood factors which can be totally changed. So we can hear from him, and in the end, for the benefit of the people who want something in Hindi, I'll try to sum up in uh, short summary, not full thing, just sum up in the end. हम आखिरी में हिंदी में सम अप करेंगे. आप डॉक्टर सुरेंद्र रेड्डी नेडवेटला से डायरेक्ट सुनिए. जो हार्ट या स्ट्रोक है, जो मानव का बनाया हुआ रोग है, वो प्रकृति में नहीं है. वो किससे हम बच सकते हैं. और नमक के बारे में पूछा गया तो नमक मैंने छोड़ दिया 14 साल पहले. मेरा कोई सोडियम डेफिशिएंसी या कमी रिपोर्ट्स में अभी तक नहीं दिखा है. उसका सिम्टम्स जो होते हैं डेफिशिएंसी का, वो भी मेरे साथ हुआ नहीं है. So, and authentic information, validated information, tested information from most authentic sources is utilized in this presentation. And your queries even later we will answer. जो क्वेश्चन अब आंसर नहीं कर सकते बाद में भी हम कर सकते हैं. हम कहीं नहीं जा रहे हैं, अवेलेबल है, साइट है, ब्लॉग साइट है, सब कुछ है. आप अब समय हम ज़्यादा नहीं लेना चाहते. डॉक्टर सुरेंद्र रेड्डी नेरवेटला, I present to you. Welcome him. Thank you for all your precious time. Please validate and utilize. Use your discernment. Thank you. Atma Namaste. He's here with you.
Atma Namaste, greetings from United States, and thank you very much for the introduction. I've been living in United States almost 50 years now, and I've been a cardiac surgeon for almost 40 plus years. And only about 15 years ago, I stumbled on this project of prevention of heart disease. One day in surgery, I was looking at it. I said, what I'm doing today actually is totally preventable. So when I looked around, and suddenly like a light bulb went off. I said, almost every surgery I'm doing is preventable. Is it just my perception, or is it validated? So I started looking into it, and how can we prevent, and what are we forgetting in prevention? So that has been a focus of my research and presentations for the last 15 years, actually. So today, I'm going to start out with the A simple, strong statement. Heart attacks and strokes are man-made disease.
I'll do it.
Okay. So I repeat that. Heart attacks and strokes are man-made problems. It's not just me saying it. It is validated by one of the most prestigious organization, American Heart Association, which is a non-profit organization. It doesn't belong to anybody. And they're dedicated to two things: prevention of heart disease and strokes. Even though it carries the name American, actually it is a worldwide organization. So American Heart Association actually says 80% at least of heart disease is preventable. So you all probably know at least somebody in your own family, friends, somebody you know of has heart attack or died very young. How do I forward this? Go to the next slide. Next slide. So while we are setting this slide process, I'm pretty sure you have all heard at least somebody among your friends and family suffering from a heart attack, actually not surviving the heart attack or strokes. That is tragic in itself, but surviving and living with a stroke sometimes can be even worse than dying from stroke, because it leaves you with so many disabilities and dysfunctions that most people who have suffered a major stroke will tell you, I wish I had not survived this. For example, if you get a stroke on the left side of the brain, you're going to lose your ability to speak. You lose your speech. You want to talk, but the words don't come out. And the right side of your body, your dominant arm and leg are not working. So you're disabled and dysfunctional, and you're so dependent that you wish you didn't survive this.
If you don't get it, straight away give it. Forget about everything.
So can you show the next slide?
Next
Okay.
Father.
Yeah. So can I go to full screen? नहीं हो रहा. Something is sorry, technical problems. Can you show the next slide?
Yeah, it is no. Slide. You only handle the presentation.
It was working.
Why cannot advance the slides?
I don't know.
Can you advance from there?
Listen to me, hand over the PPT.
I've
Handle everything.
So I've handed over. We set it up like that.
Then PPT just for one exercise.
Alt. Huh?
Yes, sir.
What is being shared there?
नहीं, one second. सबको ही करने के लिए
I could have myself set up. Screen इसमें दे रहा हूँ. हाँ?
कर रहा था. We tried twice.
You this one. ये करो ना यहाँ पे.
Okay.
It came up.
Yeah.
Greetings, everyone. Can you hear me? I hope. Can you hear? Yeah. The mic is live. So I'm back again. This is Dr. Surender Neravetla again. Apologize for the technical difficulties, but we're back. Want to remind you one more time that heart attacks and strokes are man-made diseases. Why do you say that? Just not me saying that. I just stumbled on it myself years ago and started looking at this and confirmed that the heart attacks and strokes are indeed man-made diseases. The biggest confirmation comes from the American Heart Association, which is the largest nonprofit organization dedicated to prevention of heart attacks and strokes. It's a worldwide organization, although it carries the name American. So it is a non-profit, meaning it doesn't belong to anybody. They don't have any financial interest. They don't have any other vested interest. They just want to reduce the heart attacks and strokes in human beings. So they have said that heart disease, at least 80% of it, is preventable. I agree with it wholeheartedly, and I would say it even probably much worse than that. And I came upon this study published by World Health Organization, looking at what is the biggest risk factors for death in worldwide. And normally we would think cancers are the biggest problem, but cancer as the biggest cause of death has been surpassed quite a few decades ago by heart disease. Heart disease is now the number one killer of men and women worldwide, including developed countries and developing countries. And one of the factors that struck me in this particular study by WHO, World Health Organization, is that high blood pressure now, as of this study, already surpassing what was the previous biggest killer, tobacco. Tobacco killed more people than anything else in the world, but as of 2004, already high blood pressure surpassed the number of deaths caused by tobacco. So we should really focus on preventing high blood pressure, right? So I would also let you know there are many mammals and different types of living things around on the earth that we share. Actually, there are 30 million plus different species on the face of this earth, and not single one of them add salt to their diet. Table salt I'm talking about. Table salt is added only by smart people like us, human beings. So that's how we cause heart disease. And what is interesting also is that mammals, but the heart disease is the one we are talking about, with rare exceptions, do not ever get blocked arteries. Do not get cholesterol buildup in the arteries. It's only human being problem, and it is being caused by human beings by human beings. So, in fact, there are among all the mammals in the world, mammals by definition they survive in the initial stages by drinking mother's milk, and the fastest period of growth of the baby after birth is actually within the first year. Within the first year, the babies of a variety of mammals survive only on mother's milk. And the mother's milk has very little sodium. Mother's milk has very little sodium, not table salt, sodium. But that salt is required for the baby to flourish and multiply. In fact, a typical baby grows 3 to 4 times the size in the first 1 year alone, depending only on mother's milk. So right there is another evidence that we don't really need table salt to meet our sodium requirements. So in fact, this was exactly what was stated by one scientist by name Dahl, D-A-H-L, Louis K. Dahl, and he did so many things in the lab. He contributed so much to our knowledge of high blood pressure. He's often referred to as father of hypertension. He's so highly respected in the American Heart Association that every year since his death, there is a memorial lecture designated by his name. It's called Dahl Memorial Lecture. This kind of honor is bestowed very rarely, actually, so that gives an importance of his contribution. So back in 1969, we went up to United States Congress and submitted all this research data and went in front of a committee and explained to the committee that we as human beings should not be adding table salt or sugar to our food. That's back in 1969. And how many years have passed since then? How many decades have passed since then? We have not been paying attention. So at this point, we need to understand what is high blood pressure. The fundamental problem is, as I see it, that average people on the street, or including medical professionals in the hospitals, do not have a good understanding of what high blood pressure is. So once I explain to you what high blood pressure really is in a very visual way, it's my belief that you will all automatically start paying attention to high blood pressure. And so let's try to show this video. Where is this video? So just bear with me now. It needs power. You have the power card for this one? So I hope you can see this video. And what is happening in this video is heart is pumping all the time. Can you see me also? Yes. So heart is pumping all the time, 24/7. You're sleeping, walking, doing whatever you're doing. The heart is always pumping. Yes? It's supplying nutrition, oxygen to all over the body. That's why the heart is pumping blood. So what it is doing is when it's pumping blood, it is pumping into this big artery called aorta. And each time the heart pumps blood into the aorta, this is a big artery that comes to the heart. It's like the size of a garden hose. And it branches out all over the body, carrying blood to the entire body to the smallest level. And what happens when the heart pumps blood, when it squeezes, so to speak, the artery has to receive it. So the artery relaxes to receive the blood. When the heart relaxes, the heart artery kind of shrinks. So there is a coordinated, synchronized action going on between the heart and the blood vessels. Each time the heart pumps, the artery relaxes, and they're going like this. They're going in a very coordinated fashion all the time. So what happens when somebody says you have high blood pressure? What it means is that your heart is pumping, but the artery is not relaxing as well as it should. When the heart is pumping, the artery is offering resistance. The heart is pumping, but the artery is no longer relaxed enough to accommodate the blood that the heart is pumping. So there is a problem there. Instead of going a synchronized movement between the heart and the blood vessels, the heart and the blood vessels are actually in a fight. The artery is no longer relaxing, and the arteries and the blood flow and the heart pumping action, they're not synchronized, they're fighting with each other. So who caused this fight? We did it to ourselves. We did that to ourselves to create this fight between the heart and the blood vessels. And who's going to win this fight? Nobody. There's a fight, there is no winner. The heart loses the battle in many different ways. We will go over some of them. The arteries lose the battle in many different ways. And we'll go over that in some detail. So let's go back to the slides. So we should try to prevent high blood pressure. Yeah. So let me share with you what is normally present in things that we are supposed to eat. This is the sodium and potassium contents of nuts. And this is the sodium and potassium contents of fruits. I know you are looking at a slide, so you may not be able to see it, but I don't intend for you to study this, but I just want you to look at a single glance that the potassium content of fruits and nuts, which is natural diet for human beings, has very high amount of potassium and very little sodium. Very high potassium, very little sodium. very high potassium, very little sodium. It can be any fruit or any nut. There's some difference between different nuts. But for example, if you look at almonds or peanuts, there is some sodium in that. And this sodium, please don't confuse this with salt. This sodium is not table salt. This is sodium that is naturally present in the foods that you're naturally supposed to consume. So, our natural diet, whether it's fruits or nuts, vegetables, or any number of different things, are high in potassium and very low in sodium. That's what we are supposed to consume. But what are we doing? Regardless of how wealthy or not you are, actually wealthier you are, what you're doing, as I see, we're not eating enough fruits or nuts. It's not an economic thing. It's one of those things you don't know what high blood pressure is doing to you. So instead of adding all these fruits and nuts into your daily food, you're adding table salt to just about everything that you're eating and drinking. You're doing exactly the opposite. Our diet presently is very high in sodium, especially added salt, and very low in potassium. You're doing exactly the opposite. So what's happening is, by doing the opposite of what our human body is actually made of, our kidney is being bombarded like about 70 times its capacity to handle this imbalance. The kidney will try to balance this out for a period of time, and after a while it cannot do that anymore. That's when your artery is no longer able to relax sufficiently from the damage from the salt intake directly on the arteries. That's when you get high blood pressure. And once you get high blood pressure, you get a long list of health problems: strokes, heart attacks, kidney failure, osteoporosis, dementia, type 2 diabetes, so on and so forth. So we will cover some of these things. And how soon you will be affected by this depends on this particular experiment done by Dr. Dahl, the one we said father of hypertension. He conducted this experiment. What he did is he took a bunch of rats and fed them salty diet. And what happened is, on the green side of the arrow, some of the rats didn't quite develop any high blood pressure. Whereas on the red side, some of the rats developed high blood pressure really quickly and died as a result of the high blood pressure. So he called his red rats salt sensitive rats. He called the green ones salt resistant rats. And he found out that being salt sensitive or salt resistant gets transmitted from generation after generation. So you might be born to a salt sensitive family or grandparents, so you could be salt sensitive. Unfortunately, there is no easy test to tell you how salt sensitive you are, but I can tell you that Caucasians, about 25% are salt sensitive. Black Americans are the most salt sensitive group in the world. They're about 70 plus percent or 75% are salt sensitive. Among South Asians, especially Indians, there is no specific study to see how much salt sensitive we are. But just noting the prevalence of high blood pressure among us, we are closer to Black Americans, somewhere between Caucasians and Black Americans. So I would say pick a number like 45-50% of us are salt sensitive. So the smart thing would be, you don't know how salt sensitive you are and how soon you're going to get hit with this high blood pressure. By the way, high blood pressure is the most common health problem in the world. Most common. Now, once you get high blood pressure, you're no longer a person, you're a patient. You become a patient. And you start taking medications, which will never stop. You'll start taking one medication after another, and the pills keep on mounting. So forever, you're stuck on pills. And how many of you would like to be that way, dependent on pills, and going to see doctors every so often? And you know how difficult it is to reach physicians nowadays. and how expensive it is, and all the lab tests that you're going to go through, is it worth it? The question you should ask. Is it worth going through just simply taking all these pills and running around the doctors and the hospitals? No. So, what is a smarter thing to do is to figure out a way to eat without salt, as Master Reddy has just said, and myself included, and without salt for more than 15 years. So, it can be done. And if you put health first, taste will change. Don't be under the impression that without salt, the food is going to taste bad. No salt doesn't mean no spices. No salt doesn't mean no taste. You all need to get smart and figure out how to make your normal food items without salt as low as possible. Okay? So, what does salt does to you in the body? So, salt is like a sponge. It retains water. How do we know that? Water pills are the most common medications that are given to treat high blood pressure and heart failure. The most common. So they're going to trying to reduce the amount of fluid the heart has to pump, so that even though the artery is not relaxing well, the pressure doesn't go up as much. The first line of action, for the most part, is to decrease the volume of blood by getting rid of excess water, diuretic, water pills. In fact, some people who are on heart failure that just eat a salty meal suddenly go into heart failure, even though you're not before. So that's how quickly it can go into. So one, and the second problem is that the salt, as soon as it hits the inside lining of the arteries, it makes the arteries going to spasm almost immediately. And there are studies to show that. On a long-term basis, there's more volume, and the heart is trying to push more volume into the same size pump. And second thing that happens is the arteries are under spasm. So how do you know that? So not only we give diuretics, that water pills to treat high blood pressure, there's a long list of medications that are normally prescribed for high blood pressure. Each one of them works on the lining of the arteries to relax them in a different way. Each one of the medications, there are different categories of them, but every one of them does the same thing in a different way. That is relaxing the arteries. So the arteries are relaxed and there's less volume. That's the objective of treating high blood pressure. It's not a one-time thing. You have to continuously take them all the time. So once you have high blood pressure, what happens then? So you have one side a sponge that retains water, the other side you have a scratch pad. So once high blood pressure occurs, your arteries and blood vessels and the heart are no longer in a synchronous movement. They're fighting with each other. What I mean by that is that every time the heart pumps, the blood is going across, it is scratching the inside of the arteries. It's scratching. Every time the pumps blood, scratch, scratch, scratch. Each and every heartbeat. So when that kind of scratching happens, the inside lining of the arteries is damaged. It is very critical that there has to be damage in the inside of the artery for cholesterol to build there. Treating cholesterol by itself with statin pills has some benefit, but has very limited benefit, especially for people who never had a heart attack or a stroke. In people who have a heart attack or a stroke already, we call that secondary prevention. There's a little more benefit. But who never had any heart attack and stroke, simply to take a statin medication in the hope that you don't get blocked arteries is not a good idea. It may help some people, but as a population, you have very limited success. But what causes the scratching inside the arteries? Number one is smoking. Smoking damages the inside lining of the arteries. Number two is salt, table salt. Those who don't smoke, table salt becomes number one. So if you're not a smoker, you have to say table salt is public enemy number one. Unless the arteries are damaged by some mechanism, whether smoking or high blood pressure, cholesterol by itself, is very unlikely to cause into blockages. That's what we see in animals. You don't see blocked arteries. So what happens to the arteries? So this is an example on the screen of an artery in the neck that is blocked at the point of the arrow. So what is happening here is the blood is going in the artery towards the head, to the top, and it forks into two. The artery forks into two. And one artery goes straight to the brain, the other artery goes to the face. At the bifurcation, the forking point, is their maximum scratching effect experienced. Just imagine you're driving on the road at a certain speed, and the road forks into two. And if you're in control of the car, you're going to slow down and take one of the sides. But if you don't have any brakes, like the heart already pumped the blood, and the blood is already going, you cannot slow it down. What is going to happen in this fork is going to crash on that wall all the time. So if you don't take the turn, you're going to crash on the wall. So once you have high blood pressure, the heart is pumping blood, and at a point of fork, this blood is crashing against the wall all the time, each and every heartbeat, 24/7. And you can imagine over time, that location is damaged. In that location, you will develop a blockage. You notice that rest of the artery does not have any blockage. It's only at that particular point that in the artery. So just about everywhere in the body where there is a blockage, there is a local story of why it got blocked there. And the local story of artery bifurcating, meaning forking, or artery making a turn, artery just starting out, these are friction points. These are friction points. So we want to. Second example is an example of a blockage in the artery in the heart. So the arrow points to a blockage. I don't know if I can show with my hand or not. Yes, I can? No. Okay. So at the point of the arrow, so this is a heart getting a blood from this one artery. It's called the left main artery. And there's a blockage right where the artery forks into three. And if you notice, there is a blockage right there. I hope you all can see that. So what's happening there is when the heart pumps blood, it's crashing at this trifurcation location, causing damage to the inside lining, and eventually cholesterol builds. We blame the cholesterol, but realistically, if you look at the rest of the arteries, there's no cholesterol buildup anywhere else. There's none. No cholesterol buildup any other place. If it's cholesterol is the problem, you would think it would build almost everywhere, but it's only in that particular location. It's like this: if it's raining outside, it should rain everywhere. Why only in that location? If it is sun shining, it is all over the place. But why only that location? The reason is something is happening in that location, and that is turbulence, friction, damage to the inside lining. So that's what's happening in most places with regards to the arteries of the heart. So you get blocked arteries from damage caused by high blood pressure and spasm of the arteries, so on and so forth. So what happens to the heart? The heart also is working under stress. We said there's a battle between the heart and the blood vessels, and the blood vessels lost. How is the heart losing? So heart is working out, like going to a gym and lifting weights. Heart is working against resistance. When the heart works against the resistance, the muscle naturally responds to the resistance. It's like exercise, weightlifting type exercise, like biceps curls, and it grows and gets bigger. And it gets bigger, and you got an enlarged heart. This is an example of an enlarged heart on the top left screen. Heart muscle is very thick. The cavity is very small. On the right hand of the screen, the top two are examples of how the heart should be. And the bottom is how the heart becomes when it becomes enlarged. So it becomes round like a baseball, we call it. And the heart muscle is very thick. And by changing this configuration, the heart muscle no longer pumps too well. Another interesting thing happens when the heart muscle is enlarged like this. There's a condition called diastolic dysfunction. Diastolic dysfunction affects a large number of people who have high blood pressure. What it is when the heart muscle becomes so thick, I hope you can see, heart muscle can still squeeze, still can pump, but cannot relax too well. It can still squeeze, but cannot relax too well. It becomes stiff. We got stiff ventricle is a term that we use sometimes. What happens if you don't relax? What's the big deal? You can still squeeze, you might say. So what happens is to squeeze forwards in the nature, you first have to relax. I will give an example here of somebody, golfer, trying to hit a ball. He's taking a very big backswing before he hits the ball, backswing. And that is corresponding to the relaxing phase or the diastole of the heart cycle. When he actually hits the ball, that's a systole, where the squeezing part of the cycle. So diastole is when he takes his golf club way back. Systole when he strikes it forwards. So let's say we don't allow him to take this golf backwards. We tell him we change the rules. You're not allowed to take a big backward motion. What does he have to do? He has to swing harder to hit the ball. In fact, he cannot hit the ball as far. The ability to hit the ball forwards is compromised. Even though he can still squeeze and hit, but because he could not take a backswing, how far the ball goes is decreased. And we call it diastolic heart failure. Diastolic heart failure is a very, very common problem in people with heart failure, with heart problems or high blood pressure. It's very subtle. As we get older, we simply tell ourselves, I've gotten older, I can't do the same thing I used to do younger. You just think you've gotten older. But the reality is that diastolic heart failure has set in and is very progressive. And by the time you can no longer take a backswing, your activity is so limited, you're going from the kitchen to the bathroom to the bedroom. That's it. You cannot do any more than that. Your legs swell up very easily. You get tired and short of breath with any activity. At that point, your life is very limited functionality, and how long you live also is very limited. So you're living, but not really. You're just dying longer. You're not living longer, but you're just dying longer. You're dependent on so many things. You're not independent anymore. And is the taste worth that kind of a problem in the later years? Telling yourself, I don't like the taste of something without salt, is it worth this much a problem? No. So same thing happens to the brain, dementia. On the left side is the brain of a child, and the right side is the brain of somebody who has dementia. With high blood pressure, the brain arteries suffer the same problem. Over time, tiny injuries of the brain happen. Brain, as you know, has gray matter and white matter. So gray matter and white matter. Gray matter is where all the information is stored, reservoir, storehouse. The white matter is the conduction system, electric wires. The white matter connects the gray matter to all over the body. So let's say the memory is stored in the gray matter, and you have a small stroke in that location. So whatever is stored in that location is gone. And you keep on getting these small little mini strokes in the brain in proportion to your high blood pressure. So one type of mini strokes affect where the memory is stored and you cannot retrieve it. It's gone. It's gone forever. But the same stroke affects the white matter. What happens is the memory is there, but a connection is lost. Memory is there, but a connection is lost. So between the two, you keep on losing memory over time. So the studies have now shown the higher the blood pressure, more likely you get memory loss, dementia. In fact, high blood pressure contributes 6 to 7 times the possibility of getting dementia. Not 6%, 6 to 7 times. So, right there is the biggest reason to prevent high blood pressure. I don't know if you've seen among your family members, treating with people with dementia is a big problem. I've seen in our own family connection, relatives and friends, once you have dementia, your family doesn't know how to take care of you. There's not enough support system. You're languishing without anybody careful. You're being treated worse than a dog. I've known people who are in very high places, lived a very respectable life, now living like an untouchable, nobody cares for. Oh, he's a divana, demented person. You don't have to worry about him. And you're not going to die just like that from that. You're going to live a long time in that state. It is not worth it. So I urge you all to pay attention to prevention of high blood pressure. We need to walk the walk. And don't treat the body as a trash can. Don't put junk food. So I want to touch on one other subject. I don't know how much time we have. How are we doing on time? Continue? Okay. So, India is called the diabetic capital of the world. There are more people with diabetes in India than anywhere else in the world. Not only as a percentage, of course, as a total number. Why is it? And I was very curious about this about a dozen years ago. What I noticed personally is among Indians and even patients, Caucasians, you have high blood pressure for 10, 20, 30 years. Then you get adult diabetes, type 2. I'm talking about type 2 diabetes. It's very common to see an Indian person or a Caucasian who is now type 2 diabetes who had high blood pressure for 10, 20, 30 years. In fact, I ask in medical conferences, my other medical colleagues, do you know anybody in your practice, sir, who has type 2 diabetes who does not have high blood pressure? I repeat the question. Do you have anybody in practice that has type 2 diabetes who does not have high blood pressure? The answer is very rare. Answer actually is no. It's very rare to have type 2 diabetes without having high blood pressure. I was very curious about this link. What is the problem? So I'm here to tell you now that if you want to prevent type 2 diabetes, which is a disaster in itself, you must first prevent high blood pressure. I'll explain to you how. So you're breathing air which carries oxygen. So we need the oxygen as a fuel to run our body. That's a petrol for our body. So what does oxygen do? It combines with glucose. Right here we have on the left-hand side C6H12O6. That is glucose molecule. It combines with 6 molecules of oxygen. So every time you breathe, you breathe in oxygen. When this reaction is completed, it produces energy. That's what we need to run this engine. And this is a little typo here, but the outcome of this chemical reaction is 6 molecules of carbon dioxide. 6 molecules of carbon dioxide. We all know that we are breathing oxygen, breathing out carbon dioxide. I apologize for the mistake. On the second side of the equation, it will be 6 molecules of carbon dioxide. But we also produce 6 molecules of water in this reaction. 6H2O, that's water. We kind of never paid attention to that. The reaction that we need in our body to create energy that burns glucose with the help of oxygen produces not only carbon dioxide, it produces water. And why is this important? So we just landed on the moon. Everybody knows that, right? Chandrayaan-3 landed on the moon, on the South Pole. It's extraordinary development and it's increased the prestige of India all over the world. We Indians and people of Indian origin must take note of this and be proud of it. And hopefully many more good things happen. But one of the things to take from that is this thing, type 2 diabetes. And let me explain. So there was a scientist who was originally in Russia, who is now in Nashville, Tennessee, in the United States. He's now in Nashville, Tennessee, in United States, in a university, Vanderbilt University. Okay, he submitted his research very recently. He was very curious back when he was in Russia. He was studying the cosmonauts. You know, Russian astronauts are called cosmonauts. He was studying the food habits of cosmonauts. He came across this problem. These cosmonauts don't drink enough water. The cosmonauts don't drink enough water to balance the amount of salt they are eating. They're eating salt like everybody else. If you eat salty food, you naturally need water to balance it. Reminds me, I need water too. So, it's okay, I got enough. They're not drinking water, but how are they compensating? He was very curious. And what he found, surprisingly, is that human beings can make their own water in demand to balance the salt intake. They produce some water anyway, but they can increase the water quantity in response to the salt intake. He found out that over time, the human beings don't drink enough water, but they keep on producing more water to compensate for it. And how do they compensate? They break down more glucose than necessary. Human beings who eat salt break down more glucose than necessary just to get to the water. He confirmed this observation in human volunteers and animal models. He did his research over 30 plus years in Russia, then he went on to Germany, then he came to United States, he continued the research and finally published his findings. The finding is that are using more glucose than necessary to make water. And what is the consequence of that? Consequence is, in order to burn more glucose, our human body is secreting more steroids than necessary. Human body continuously, the pituitary gland, continuously producing more steroids than necessary to increase this glucose breakdown. And if we take it further, so we are in a state of high steroid level unnecessarily from eating salt. And high steroid level continuously over time causes metabolic syndrome, and which is type 2 diabetes, osteoporosis, and obesity, and many other things. So type 2 diabetes is a part of that. So more recent research came that every gram of extra salt you consume, this came from Europe also, increases the risk of type 2 diabetes by 2.5 times. 2.5 times. So we have confirmation from another independent source. So my friends and colleagues, if you want to prevent type 2 diabetes, you must first start with preventing high blood pressure. So you hit two birds with one stone. And once you have high blood pressure, untreated, undertreated, unrecognized, then you get type 2 diabetes, then heart disease is right around the corner. Kidney failure around the corner. Dementias around the corner. They're all going to come one after the other. That's how you're going to lead your retirement life. So with that, I'm going to try to stop here, but just want to let you know there are 1 billion people in the world with high blood pressure. 1 billion. Makes it the most common problem in the world. And just by eating a handful of nuts in your diet, cardiac disease goes down by a third. Diabetes goes down by 40%. Handful of nuts. You might not know this, but Mahatma Gandhi wrote in his autobiography, My Experiments with Truth, he wrote in that book that he lived on fruits and nuts only, nothing else. Fruits and nuts only for 9 full years. 9 years. He wrote about that. So you should at least incorporate that in your daily diet. Doesn't have to be any particular fruit or nut. It could be anything. So if you're allergic to nuts, find one that you're not allergic to. And any variety of fruit does the same thing. And the common thing is they all have high potassium and very low sodium and many other nutrients. So even if you add a little pinch of salt, like they say, oh, just a pinch won't hurt you. There's a study published in British Medical Journal in 2013 says just adding a pinch of salt, which is present in most, pills people take for headache type things, increase the risk of high blood pressure by 7 times. People routinely take these pills and they risk themselves having high blood pressure just because there's some salt in that. We should not be doing this. So if you never consumed salt in your life, the blood pressure would be in the range of 90/60. We have several populations that have lived without salt confirm this, 90/60. People say, I have low blood pressure. If you're talking to me, you don't have any low blood pressure. What is normal blood pressure is very variable from person to person. Non-salt eating people often have high blood pressure even in the 80s and function normally. So low blood pressure does happen, like hyperglycemia in people with diabetes. It's in diabetes who get hyperglycemia. In the same way, people who have high blood pressure and heart failure and on several medications can have low blood pressure and low sodium, both. Just because somebody tells you I have low sodium doesn't mean it needs to be treated, only if they are symptomatic from that. And if it needs to be treated, only temporarily. But just because somebody else has low sodium doesn't mean you should be taking sodium. You should be taking salt. Big mistake. There's always one in the audience, I have low sodium. Or somebody told me I have low sodium problem. And everybody in the audience thinks I should be taking salt. No. That's how you end up needing adding salt. So be careful. If somebody is hyperglycemia, that's not your problem. That's his problem. And don't make it your problem by eating sugar. So this is an example of turbulence. The blood flow in the top side is very smooth. In each one of us, 5 liters of blood is running through every minute, and we don't hear a thing about it. But when you develop high blood pressure, you develop friction points in the bottom. The blood is going every which direction. We hear those, and you put a stethoscope, it's a heart murmur. If somebody says, I have a heart murmur, that means the blood is not flowing smoothly. There's a friction going on. This is an example of a friction and all the different types of things that happen that we have to dig out. Very hard blockages develop. And what is originally very soft, cushy, cotton-like cholesterol becomes a hard rock because it builds layer after layer after layer over many, many years. And this is an example of artery that I showed earlier on. The artery in the neck going up. In the middle, it forks into two. Right there, the blockage develops, nearly always, because that's where it forks. I wish I had a pointer I could show, but that's where it happens. How bad is the heart problem among Indians? Really bad problem. You probably all know somebody who died suddenly, very young man. He had no other problem. He suddenly died. And that is the kind of blockage I showed you earlier in the slides. The main artery has built up cholesterol buildup. 50% of the heart attacks among Indians under the age of 55. Can you imagine that? And when you get heart attacks among Indians compared to Caucasians, they're much more sicker. And they are much more likely to get a second heart attack. And 12% of heart attacks actually happen before the age 40. High blood pressure among Indians starts at teenage years. So that's where we need to put the stop. That's where we need to put the stop. This is kind of blockage that comes out of the neck that we take out. This is a common surgery I perform from the neck. where the blockage was. This is another problem that develops called aneurysm. But anyway, I will now take some slides. Let's take some questions. I continue, or you want to take questions? Take questions. Okay. Okay, where is the question? Are they on the chart line or? Okay, so the most common questions I face, if there's a provision to put a question in the chat room, please do that. And I will respond to that. Okay, so one of the common questions that comes up is about iodine. So iodine, stable salt has been a source of iodine. What about my iodine? Am I going to get iodine deficiency? Very good question. Okay, so back about 100 years ago or so, University of Michigan proposed that we should add iodine to table salt so that everybody gets table salt, so everybody going to iodine. So that was a great idea. But now, back in the day, we all lived in a specified geographic areas. We all lived in a certain area, and we ate whatever that land produced. We drank from water from that land. So, unfortunately, depending on the soil of each particular region, there are certain deficiencies and certain excesses, both of them. Like stone belts, for example. If you're born in a certain area, you're likely to have a kidney stone. You probably heard that. Same thing with iodine too. So now what is happening, unless you're in very, very indigent location, almost all of us are eating and drinking even water and eating produce that is coming from many different geographic locations, not one place. So iodine deficiency as a population problem is essentially gone. So there is no justification to add or eat table salt in the hope that you get enough iodine. No, as a population. So there are exceptions. Somebody might tell you, your doctor might tell you you're iodine deficient. Is there an alternative way to get salt, iodine? Yes, there is. If you're a vegetarian or non-vegetarian, both. So most common things are simple things like spinach, beans, various legumes, milk, eggs. These are common sources of iodine. And iodine requirement is very, very small. Very small. Even if you take a cup of yogurt, that is buttermilk, once or twice a week, that is good enough. Okay? So you should not be in the fear of iodine deficiency just because you're not eating table salt. And don't inherit or get all the complications from table salt just so you don't get iodine deficiency. No, that's not the way to go. So that's a very common question. My husband has hypertension and diabetes type 2. Can stopping salt now will prevent stroke? Yes, the answer is yes, and yes, yes. So if you're on 3 pills, you can go down to 2. If you're on 2 pills, you can go down to 1. If you're on 1 pill, you can go down to nothing. By simple thing, including fruits and nuts, generous amount. Even if you're diabetic, I'm telling you, diabetes must eat fruit, should eat fruit, should include fruit in their daily diet within the calorie limit. Unfortunately, people associate diabetes with sugar, and they associate sugar with fruits, and they stop eating fruits. Much more common among Indians. There is no fruit that is entirely forbidden for diabetes. No. You can eat any or all the fruits. You can verify this by going to American Diabetic Association website. I would recommend those who have access to internet, do the search. American Diabetic Association, ADA, and say fruits next to that. American Diabetes Association tells you that there's no, fruit that is not allowed for you. Fruit is necessary not only get your appropriate amount of sodium and potassium balance, but it is necessary for getting all the micronutrients, which the diabetics need more than anybody else. Diabetics are short of micronutrients. They should do that. So by stop adding salt and eating more fruits and nuts, you have a strong possibility that diabetics type 2 can reverse, high blood pressure can reverse. So please try. If you don't try, guess what's going to happen? You're going to keep on end up more pills, more pills, more pills. Okay? So it's worth a try. I would strongly encourage you to do that. Next question. Whether salt only blocks arteries or any other elements as well. Okay. So we talked about smoking. Smoking does the same type of damage to the arteries. Diabetes, especially type 1, does the same type of problem. Severe cholesterol levels, high, is called severe hypercholesterolemia. It's called familial hypercholesterolemia. I'm talking about 1,000 range, can by itself cause the same type of inflammation. Any other elements, if you're thinking about magnesium, potassium, and other elements, no, we don't have any data about that. We don't need to worry about that. Okay? So that is a good question. Any other question? Keep going. Okay. So other common questions we face is also on vitamin supplements. And I just posted this on a YPB site. If you are not able to see that blog that I posted, please say so in the YPB site. I will post that in the WhatsApp site. So just 2 days ago, there was a report that vitamin pills that most of you consume do not have what they say on the label. I repeat, the vitamin tablets most of us consume do not contain what they say on the label. So if you take vitamin pills, you really don't know what you're getting. This is not the first time this kind of a study came out. A few years back, in the United States, the Attorney General of New York raided vitamin selling companies, 4 of them, and tested supplement pills. Guess what? 3 out of 4 of them did not have what they said on the label. So unfortunately, vitamin supplement industry is an uncontrolled industry. You should not take any pills anyway if you can help it, whether it is vitamins or regular pills. But to think pills will make up for you eating a wrong diet is a big mistake. Okay, first thing is, when you eat vitamin pills, you don't know what you're getting. Okay, pay attention to that. You don't know what you're getting. This has been proven over and over. Number 2 is, when you have to eat an apple, you have to eat an apple. There's no alternative option to that. You cannot pick and choose parts of apple, chemical compositions, and say, I'm eating an apple. No. Human body does not recognize nutrition in that fashion. That's the reason why study after study shows taking vitamin pills does not prevent cancers, does not prevent heart disease, does not prevent osteoporosis, does not prevent dementia, on and on. There's so many studies that taking vitamin pills is not the answer to prevent any of this. Simple reason is human body does not assimilate, recognize nutritional elements through pills. There are rare exceptions, but generally speaking, that's not how you get it. Okay? So, number three, even a bigger problem. People who take vitamin pills, the studies have shown they live in a false sense of security. Oh, I've taken a vitamin pill to make up for whatever deficiencies I have in my diet. So they feel entitled to eat whatever garbage they want to eat, or whatever trash they want to eat, and put it in their body. They're not eating healthy diet. People who exercise often do this too. I ran a mile, so I will eat ice cream. Okay, you heard that, right? So that doesn't work like that. So taking vitamin pills as an excuse or a balance for not eating healthy doesn't work either. So one, two, three reasons. Vitamin pills, you don't know what they have in them. Number two, human body doesn't recognize them. Number three, you live in a false sense of security. Next question. Should I keep testing myself for vitamin D and vitamin B12 deficiency? This is a setup for companies to sell vitamin D and vitamin B12 tablets. Okay? This is set up for the industry for you to get tested every other month and go on these pills. Yes, there are people with vitamin D deficiency, and there are people with vitamin B12 deficiency, but not the entire population. When I come to India and look at blood test reports, every single person has vitamin D test done, vitamin B12 test done. The United States Task Force, which has the responsibility of recommending these kind of things, has stated that as a general population, we should not do that. We should not routinely test for these deficiencies. And we should not routinely take vitamin B12 and vitamin D tablets. No. There are well-known symptoms, not just I don't feel right. Everybody doesn't feel right sometime or the other. There could be 1,000 reasons why you feel tired. I will tell you that diastolic dysfunction is the most likely problem in most people I come across who don't have the energy. I don't have the same energy. You have high blood pressure, you have diastolic dysfunction. Pay attention to that. And you get tested, you got vitamin D deficiency, and you start taking vitamin D pills. You're completely on the wrong track. Okay? So I would suggest that vitamin D testing and vitamin B12 testing should be limited to certain situations, not routinely, not as frequent as they're doing it, and save that money and buy some fruits, my friends, buy some nuts. Eat a guava, jamakai. It's a super fruit. It's the cheapest fruit you can buy. Guava. If you're able to buy vitamin tablets and pills, which you don't know what is in there, you can certainly afford to eat a guava. And that will help you with balancing your sodium, calcium, potassium, gives you a large amount of vitamin C, and many other things. And I don't see why somebody doesn't eat that every day, because it is available almost year round. That's how you prevent high blood pressure, heart attack, and strokes. Simple solutions. Okay? All right. Rock salt better than ordinary salt. Thank you for that question. Thank you very much for that question. Himalayan salt. I'm surprised you didn't say Himalayan salt. So we South Asians suddenly become nostalgic and religious and philosophical when say Himalayan salt. Oh, it's coming from Himalayas. Must be good. I must tell you, most of the Himalayan salt actually comes from Pakistan. Just in case you didn't know. It is written made in India, but it comes from Pakistan. You might not know that. Anyway, maybe not all that. So I would encourage you to do the search yourself. Himalayan salt, is it healthy for me? Sea salt, is it healthy for me? But I'll tell you succinctly. All the sea salts, whether it is Himalayan salt, rock salt, pink salt, kosher salt, you name it, okay? They're all 98% the same salt as table salt. 98% same salt as the table salt. You get all the negative effects of taking salt. Every one of them. You saw the list. I'll post the list on the YPV. Eating Himalayan salt or pink salt, rock salt, will give you all those negative effects. And when it comes to these special minerals these salts claim, first of all, as we talked about vitamins, that's not how our human body recognizes those things. Okay? You're better off eating nuts if you want to get magnesium, calcium, those things. Secondly, you have to eat toxic amount of salt. Those special elements are so little, minuscule, that you need a huge amount of salt, entire plate full of salt and nothing else, to get the benefit of that little micro elements that they claim. Okay, this is a serious propaganda, subliminal message. In fact, nobody advertises that sea salt is good for you. Okay, but they subliminally marketing, they will make you believe that sea salt is better for you. If I ask a person in the audience, I heard sea salt is good for you. I say, where did you hear? Please show me where you heard. Oh, I just heard. I don't know where is. I just heard from somebody, and I've yet to find that somebody. Okay, this is how subtle marketing works. And you all have access to internet, and you have all access to Google. Do the search and get smarter, and don't get tricked by this now made with sea salt slogan to think that sea salt somewhere is better and different than. Please don't do that. So I hope that answers that question, and thank you very much for asking that question. We'll go to the next question. Let's see if there's any other. When you scroll down the questions. Come on, guys, this is your time. There are 180 people online. What is the next question? I'm sorry? Rajni Punjab. Sir, how many people complain sodium deficiency? What food should we take to prevent it? Okay. I think I covered this a little bit, but I will tell you one more time. Sodium deficiency happens in people who already have high blood pressure, have heart failure, or on multiple medications. There are rare circumstances, there are tumor of your adrenal gland or pituitary gland that loses sodium in your urine, or rare disease of kidney that loses sodium. And you hear somebody who has sodium deficiency, that's not your problem. But if you keep eating sodium, salt, thinking you'll not get sodium deficiency, that's exactly how you're going to get sodium deficiency. It's like hypoglycemia. Who gets hypoglycemia? The one who's diabetic gets hypoglycemia, not the average person. And if you know of somebody who got hypoglycemia, you start eating sugar in the expectation that you don't want to get hypoglycemia. That's exactly how you're going to get diabetes. Okay, so sodium deficiency, the sodium level is a range, is different for different people. If you're only having symptoms related to sodium level being low, only then you should be treated. That's a problem affecting a very small percentage of people. But there are 1 billion people with high blood pressure. Actually, 300 million Indians with high blood pressure. Don't be one of them. Okay? I hope I made that clear enough. So people say that it's recommended to eat low glycemic foods. I agree with you 100%. Whole grains, fruits, and nuts are actually low glycemic. Nuts are definitely low glycemic. Fruits, surprisingly, are low glycemic. There is a variation between different fruits, but as a group, they are low glycemic. So if you're eating fruits and nuts, largely, I would say fruits and nuts should be bulk of your meal on a day. And if you do that, you're actually eating low glycemic foods. Whereas you eat rice If you eat chapati made out of flour, which is processed, maida, things that are made out of maida, things that are made out of rice, they are high glycemic. And we all live on that. We eat rice every day, we eat chapati every day, right? So we are eating high glycemic index food. We should reduce the amount of rice we eat, reduce the amount of what kind of chapati you make. And there is a variation in rice also. And instead, you eat more nuts and more fruits. That's how you shift your high glycemic food to low glycemic. Yeah, high blood pressure medications have side effects. There is no pill that does not have side effects. There is no pill that does not have side effects. And if you add them up, it's even worse. One of the subtle side effects I'm noticing is people who take pills often have anemia, low hemoglobin count, low blood count. That is anemia. You obvious to know if you get a rash, you get a swelling, you cannot breathe. These are obvious side effects, okay? But long-term subtle side effects or any medication, even aspirin, simple things, can affect your bone marrow where your blood cells are manufactured. Bone marrow depression can happen. People who take multiple medications often have anemia. And you tell them take iron pills, take this, take that. They should probably take iron supplement, but regardless. But as long as the bone marrow doesn't produce enough blood, your best chance actually is to work towards reducing your medication in a methodical way, preferably under supervision. And you will see that your hemoglobin rises. I give the example of my mother, who is almost 90 now. At one point, she was on several medications, high blood pressure, etc., etc. And blood thinner too. She was on blood thinner too. So past many years now, she's not on any of these medications. And guess what? Her blood pressure is normal, and her hemoglobin is 14 grams plus. Extremely unusual for a female at that age. Why? She eats fruits and nuts for breakfast. She doesn't take any medications. And she eats no salt food. Okay, try that out. And there are many examples like that. Okay, so amlodipine in some people does cause swelling of the legs. I would switch the medication to a different class called ARBs, ARB. ARB. So there are several medications in that category. Give it a try. Again, your first objective is to try to come down on your medications. Okay. Sometimes post major surgery there is sodium imbalance. No. In fact, post surgery you are receiving a lot of salt. All the IV fluids are salt, unfortunately. And we have not studied that enough to say what kind of fluid we should be giving. But it's a short-term thing, so we focus on fluid more than contents. When you come out of the hospital, get back to your diet that we just talked about. Your family is complaining low energy. Don't connect that to low salt diet. Make them eat more fruits and nuts. And that will automatically sustain long-term energy. So if you eat high glycemic food, your energy level goes up and goes down like this. Your glucose level goes up and goes down like up and down shaft. If you eat low glycemic food, your energy level lays more smoothly and sustains through the day. Okay? So they are probably talking more about their taste. They're having difficulty adjusting the taste. And trying to find out, give a backdoor way to put more salt in your food diet. So most people can adapt to low salt diet very easily, okay? I'm telling you, majority. Some may take a weekend, some may take 10 days, some may take 3 months. Almost all the people can do it. But there are some people, for whatever reason, they are so stuck on taste, they cannot adjust. They make you believe that you are eating tasteless food and living a worthless life. I tell in my audience, if you're following any dietary modifications in your food to help you with improve your diet, be a healthcare hero. Stand up and say, yes, I'm not eating salt. Yes, I'm not taking high blood pressure medication. Don't be, oh, I don't eat salt. I don't take this. Don't hide into that. Whereas these guys, people who drink alcohol, for example, they make you believe that they're having fun and you're not. Same thing with people who eat highly salty foods. Oh, look at that, I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. What about you? What's the point of living like this? They make you believe that. So you need to stand tall if you are following diet and not taking medication. Look, I take only one medication now. How about that? I went to the ashram, all medications are gone. How about that? Don't be ashamed about it. Don't be, thinking negative about that. Be strong and show the change that has happened in your life so that other people will follow. So these are healthcare bullies, Don't fall for it. Right? Okay. Next question. Yeah, social media could be used for good or bad, and I would encourage all of you to figure out a good way to research for information. Don't fall for propaganda sites. Look for authentic sources, an authentic source like American Heart Association can change its mind based on new evidence. Just because they change their mind, oh, they tell you to take this now, next year they want to tell you something else. I want to just stick to my tasty, salty diet. No. Ability to change your opinion based on evidence is a strength, not a weakness. So, if American Heart Association says, hey, guys, we did tell you this, but please listen to it now. Listen to it now. It's a very good source of information. Cleveland Clinic, American National Institute of Health, Mayo Clinic, CDC. I know CDC is given a lot of negative propaganda with COVID, but I tell you, for the most part, they give you authentic information. So go through these authentic sites and verify more than one source. Don't fall for the sponsored sites. Okay? So that's what happens. Okay. Any other question? Ideal amount of water you should consume. Tough question. There are a lot of people say you must drink 8 liters of water, 8 ounces of water. There are all kinds of numbers out there. There's no. So as Reddy sir, the master has said in the very beginning, I'm not allowed to say something that is not proven by proven science, that is vetted and peer-reviewed science. In fact, my son, who's a co-author of my books and writings, he verifies to make sure I don't say a single word that I cannot verify. Okay? So this question goes to that. There is no verifiable information. There is no verifiable information that tells you how much water you should drink. In general, we should drink more water than what we might be drinking. That's the general consensus. If you're thirsty, you must drink water. Let thirst be your guide to drinking water. Let thirst be your guide to drinking water. When in doubt, drink a little extra water. Beyond that, there is no medical information to tell you that is authentic, research proven, that you should drink this much water. I'm sorry to give it like that. Among South Indians, it's very powerful. Oh, this guy doesn't even care about water. You lose your authenticity. No, unfortunately, there's no information. Shalini Shekhar, that was it. Any specific oil you would suggest for cooking? I would say, don't cook in oil. That's the best suggestion. But don't cook in saturated fat. Don't cook in coconut oil. And I have strong reservations about using ghee in cooking based on American Heart Association's recommendation. When I talk about ghee and coconut oil, I lose a lot of my audience. I'm going by authentic, tested information. In South India, very popular to have coconut oil drinking parties, ghee drinking parties. No, there's no basis for that. Coconut water, great. Coconut meat, great. High potassium, helps you lower blood pressure. Coconut oil is saturated fat. Ghee, apply on your skin, burn your candles with that. But cautious about how much you put in your food. So cooking oil, mono unsaturated oils are the best. I'm not sure what specific oil brands are available in India, but mono unsaturated or polyunsaturated oils you should use whenever possible. Okay? And second point is don't keep on using the same oil. There is what is called smoking point, when the oil degrades into saturated fat. Each oil has a certain point. Ghee has a high smoking point. However, it's already saturated fat. So be generous. If you cook something in oil, say for example deep fried, throw that away. First of all, you should not deep fry. But there are occasions you may not be able to get away with. You should discard the United States, there is regulations how many times you can allow to use the same oil in restaurants. For example, French fries, there is a food inspector who goes around from time to time saying how many times you use the same oil. Okay, so there are some regulations. So I hope that answers your question to some extent. Does sugar, polished rice also contribute high blood pressure and diabetes? So diabetic people can develop high blood pressure in a very complex mechanism. So roundabout way, answer is yes. Controlling diabetes controls high blood pressure also. And tobacco causes high blood pressure by itself, but also directly injures the arteries. Polished rice is high glycemic index, promotes developing diabetes. And maida, polished rice is like maida, okay? Role of uric acid in the case of diabetic type 2. So uric acid and gout are connected. Uric acid and kidney stones are connected. High blood pressure, not entirely connected. Uric acid is connected to red meats. Uric acid is connected to certain vegetables. Uric acid is connected to alcohol, especially beer. So you should not do that anyway. Okay? What else? Manju Gowda, sir, blood pressure 129/75 looks pretty good. Cholesterol 201. Triglycerides 120. VLDL. What is your HDL? So I don't go around checking cholesterol very often, unless you're in a high risk category. Everybody gets cholesterol level checked. Once you check it, you know where you are. Maybe that's enough. Vitamin D testing, B12 testing, cholesterol testing constantly. And you get a CT scan, you get an echocardiogram. My goodness, you're going round and round. How much money you're spending on all these tests? How much life you're spending going to these doctors and laboratories? Don't you think it's worth trying to figure out how you can make your favorite dish with less salt or no salt? I don't recommend testing this. Obviously, you don't have diabetes or are well under control. That's very good. Okay, any other question? I'll keep going down. DVT. There's severe DVT and breathlessness and anemia and thalassemia. I'm sorry, your situation is slightly different. different than most people that we are talking about. Anemia produced by thalassemia requires special care. You may have a clotting tendency from thalassemia. Your bone marrow function may be affected with thalassemia. There are multiple non-vegetarian sources for iron, but there are also vegetarian sources for iron. I would say again beans and milk does have some, so not much, but you need to do your own research regarding what vegetarian sources are there for iron. They are definitely are. Okay, so I would encourage you to do that if you're not able to eat any meats. So you should be treated by a well-respected, hematologist. And what recommendations that are made for you doesn't apply to general population. So the hereditary high blood pressure means you are salt sensitive. Of course, there are people who have a tumor in the kidney. That could be sometimes hereditary. That's a different situation. So most so-called hereditary high blood pressure, everybody in your family has blood pressure, is because they're eating the wrong diet, all of them. And they may also inherit that gene that makes you salt sensitive. That's where you can make the change. How many grams of nuts a day? There's no limit. If you don't make them unsalted, if you don't add salt to it, that's the beauty of nature, you see. If you eat fruits or nuts, if you eat a banana, for example, let's say you're crazy about bananas. How many bananas can you eat? One, everybody can eat. Second one, with difficulty. Third one, you almost cannot eat. But if I give you a banana pie made out of 20 bananas, you'll finish off just like that. Nuts also the same thing. Peanuts, unsalted, eat a handful, you're full. Stop sign. If I salt them, the stop sign disappears. You keep on eating. You keep on eating potato chips with salt and watch a cricket game, okay? Or salted peanuts. Let the nature be your stop sign. And if you eat the natural things, nature stops you. I hope that answers your question. Dialysis patients is a tough problem. We're trying to prevent you people from going to dialysis. So high blood pressure and diabetes and smoking, 3 strong reasons to end up on dialysis. All 3 are controllable. And for the most part, dialysis, kidney failure, just like heart disease and stroke, is preventable. Effect of salt in the kidneys through high blood pressure and diabetes. Because my brother have been doing that for a long time, I don't know this. Yeah, if your brother has losing potassium in his kidneys, or he's retaining potassium, both conditions can happen. There is potassium losing nephropathy, there's potassium retaining nephropathy. Your kidney doctor might tell you, be careful eating potassium containing fruits and nuts. That is a kind of an extreme scenario in people who are already kidneys failed, cannot excrete sodium and potassium in normal way. So you must work under the direction of your nephrology doctor, kidney specialist. Salt and osteoporosis. Wow. I'm glad you asked that question. Padmalata Yara. There are multivitamin products from Herbalife and Amway. I don't know about these specific brands, but by and large, they're not controlled. There's no agency that regulates it in the United States or anywhere else. And what they put in them is entirely up to them at this point. So I would, for reason number 1, you don't know what you're getting. Reason number 2, even bigger for you, even if you entirely trust these companies, I must tell you, the human body doesn't recognize nutrients that way. Let me explain further, okay? Padmalata Garu. That somebody your son is out of town, okay? And somebody says, I saw your son in the market. And you ask the question, how do you know that's your son? Or somebody shows you a picture of your son. How do you know that is your son? Is it because his nose? Is it because his eyes? Is it because his ears? Is it because his lips? Let's say I just present to you not the whole picture, but show you only the nose. Can you tell this is your son? Or the lips? Can you tell that's your son? How do you expect the human body to recognize something in the pill as an apple or an orange or any other fruit you can think of? Does not work that way. Human body says, I don't know. So it just excreted in urine and feces. And the experts will tell you if you take vitamin pills, you're just making an expensive urine. Nothing's going, it just goes in and out. So it doesn't actually assimilate in the body. There are rare exceptions. If you're truly deficient in vitamin B12, you have to take a shot, not a pill. Because your human intestine is not able to process the vitamin B12 precursors that need to be converted into B12. Okay? That's one example. So I cannot emphasize strongly enough that trusting vitamin pills to think that you're getting all the things is really false sense of security. So osteoporosis, very good question. So human body has to, we talked about this, we are bombarding the kidneys 70 times its capability to handle excess salt. I hope you remember that slide, okay? So the kidney gets rid of the excess salt for a certain time, but it keeps on trying to do that. What we have learned from urologists, kidney doctors who do take out kidney stones and that, they recommend if you have a kidney stone which is calcium stone, they recommend eat low salt diet. I was shocked. So what do you mean eat low salt diet? What has it got to do with it? Just like you asked. So it turns out in the process of getting rid of the salt, the kidney also loses precious calcium through the same pathway. The more salt you eat, more calcium you lose. More salt you eat, more calcium you lose. It's like walking around with a hole in your pocket. You put in your pocket more and more coins, but they just keep disappearing. To explain another way, let's say you're in a cold climate like Himalayas, okay? And you're in a cold climate like the Himalayas, and it's snow. And the temperature outside is 0 degrees, okay? 0 degrees. And you have a nice warm house, heated, and fireplace and heating system and everything, okay? So you had some friends come over, and you want to treat them for a lunch. And you put something on the stove and started cooking, and you got into a big argument about which salt is better or which oil is better or whatever. You got in a big fight. You forgot about this, what's cooking on the stove, until it start burn and smoke everywhere. The entire room is smoke. I would ask you, what would you do then? And you cannot communicate with me, but I can tell you that you probably will say that I'm going to open a window or a door to get rid of the smoke, right? So you open a window because everybody choking and coughing. You want to open a window to get rid of the smoke. So your intention to open the window or the door was to get rid of the smoke. But outside temperature is 0 degrees. You're sitting in a warm, nice room. what happens to the room? It gets cold too. The heating system, heating thing, goes out through the window. You did not mean to do that, but it goes through. You can put more logs into the fire system. You can heat up, increase the heat in your heating system. Whatever you do, as long as you leave the door open, that room is never going to get warm. Agree with me? You're following the story. The same thing with osteoporosis. The salt leads to losing calcium. Osteoporosis is not a disease of deficiency of calcium in your diet, truly speaking. There is enough calcium in all milk, guava, and many other things. Okay, you don't need a lot of calcium. 20 milligrams of calcium in guava is more useful than 1,000 milligram calcium tablet because the body knows it is calcium. The tablet calcium, I don't know what it is. Okay? So if you don't want to have osteoporosis, you want to prevent calcium loss. If you don't do that, doesn't matter how much calcium you eat, you're going to develop osteoporosis. You know how we know that? Cheese, one of the most common sources of calcium in the Western world. Unfortunately, cheese is almost always made with salt, especially in America. And Western countries have the highest osteoporosis, even though they eat the most calcium compared to us. Osteoporosis is almost 100% close to that number after a certain age in cheese eating countries. Okay? So if you don't want that, stop eating salt. Thank you for that question. Is cocaine good for human body? I hope you're not serious. Next question. If the child has iron deficiency, first you need to try to correct the iron deficiency with diet as much as possible. They need to investigate why the child is iron deficient. Is he having absorption problem? Is the diet deficient in iron? Serious iron deficiency, you need an injection, IV injection. There are hormones that can be given to stimulate red blood cell production. You can take that. But simply taking iron, I would recommend if you're serious about iron deficiency, you have the doctor write a prescription for iron pills. And you go to the pharmacy and get the pharmaceutical version of the same thing applies to B12 also. Pharmaceutical version of the iron. Not over the counter, some Amway product or whatever you just saw. No. So you get the authentic source of the iron. Yes, you do have to take medicines have a role, yes. Surgery has a role, I'm a heart surgeon. But not an excuse to eat whatever you want. Okay? All right. Uric acid, the general consensus is vegetarian diet doesn't make uric acid worse. That's what the literature says, unfortunately. But there are uric acid producing precursors that are high in certain things, like spinach, tomatoes, things like that. There's no consensus opinion that you should avoid eating them or not. If you have high uric acid, they ask you to avoid drinking alcohol and organ meat, which is high in purines. But the recommendation with regards to don't eat this fruit, that fruit, or that vegetarian diet is very patchy. I have to be honest with you. So that's where it is. Unfortunately, there's not enough research about that subject. Okay, any other question? And you do the research, I'll be doing the same thing. That is okay. So thank you guys. Thank you very much for being a patient audience and putting up with all the technical difficulties. I hope I answered all your questions and concerns. Just remember, heart disease and stroke are man-made diseases. heart disease and stroke are man-made diseases, and don't do it to yourself. Don't do it yourself. If you put health as a priority, the taste will change. If you put health first, taste will change. If you put taste first, health will suffer. So the choice is yours. Choice is yours. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much.
We must thank Dr. Surender Reddy Neravetla for giving a fantastic lecture and patiently answering so many questions. And also we thank all the audience for being patient in hearing. अभी हम थोड़ा सा I'll take a quick 5 to 7, 10 minutes to just summarize what he said in Hindi. Hindi में बोलूँगा. Then some of it which probably you have not heard or not got into your system, it will go now. So if you are Hindi or English, you just listen. हिंदी में सुनेंगे कि हार्ट और स्ट्रोक हम लोग मानव का बनाया हुआ है. 80% उसको प्रिवेंट कर सकते, उससे मुक्त रह सकते हमारा लाइफस्टाइल से. हार्ट डिसीज़ है सबसे नंबर 1 किलर है, सबसे बड़ा किलर है. और एक हार्ट डिसीज़ के सबसे बड़ा कारण है हाई बीपी है, और उसके बाद में टोबैको है, डायबिटिक है. और बीपी के साथ डायबिटिक भी होता है. और फिजिकल इनएक्टिविटी और ओबेसिटी के कारण हमारा ये हार्ट डिसीज़ हो सकता है. ये कोई जानवर के पास में हार्ट डिसीज़ नहीं है क्योंकि वो साल्ट अपना खाने में नहीं डालते हैं. तो हम भी ऐसे ही है. हार्ट मदर मिल्क में फॉर एग्जांपल क्या बोला गया है कि कम सोडियम होता है. तो ये गाय भैंस जो बच्चे हैं, बछड़ा है, वो सब जीते हैं, और बच्चे भी जीते हैं, छोटे शिशु भी जीते हैं. वो लोग तो साल्ट नहीं ले रहे हैं, मदर के मिल्क में उतना साल्ट मौजूद नहीं है. और लुइस ने जो बताया है कि जवानी में और बचपन में ये साल्ट बंद कर देना बहुत ज़रूरी है. 1969 में बोला है, लेकिन हम लोग उसको सुन नहीं रहे हैं. और बीपी को प्रिवेंट करे और तो हार्ट का डैमेज अवॉइड हो सकता है. नो क्या है, हार्ट जब वो पंप करता है, हमारा जो आर्टरीज है वो रिलैक्स करते हैं. हार्ट पंप करता है, हार्ट रिलैक्स करते हैं, और हार्ट रिलैक्स करता है और ये आर्टरीज कंट्रैक्ट करते हैं, तो दोनों डांस कर रहे हैं. ये हाई बीपी का मतलब क्या है, जब हार्ट पंप करता है, आर्टरीज रिलैक्स नहीं हो रहे जितना होना चाहिए, इसलिए अपोजिंग प्रेशर आता है, तो दोनों में झगड़ा शुरू हो गया हार्ट और आर्टरीज में. ये किस कारण होता है, ये सब बताया गया है कि वॉल्यूम बढ़ने से होता है, साल्ट से होता है. और एक बार ये पंपिंग बढ़ गया, प्रेशर बढ़ गया, तो हार्ट का मसल बढ़ता है. हार्ट मसल होने से डायस्टोलिक डिसफंक्शन होता है, हार्ट पूरा रिलैक्स नहीं हो पाता है जितना होना है, कम होता है. तो ये ज़्यादा पंप नहीं कर पाता है, मतलब अपना ताकत कम हो जाता है. ताकत कम हो जाता है तो हमारा जीना, हम लोग अपना जीवन में खींच के जा रहे हैं, उठना बैठना मुश्किल हो जाता है, चलना मुश्किल हो जाता है. तो डायस्टोलिक डिसफंक्शन भी हो सकता है. और ये बीपी बढ़ने के कारण आर्टरीज डैमेज होता है, इनर लाइनिंग डैमेज होता है. अगर हमारा कोलेस्ट्रॉल नॉर्मल भी है, तब भी कोलेस्ट्रॉल वहाँ पे जमा हो सकता है. कोलेस्ट्रॉल ज़्यादा होने का ज़रूरत नहीं है. और जहाँ जहाँ डैमेज हुआ, जंक्शन है, दोनों ट्राई जंक्शन बाई जंक्शन में जमा होते हैं और वहाँ पे ब्लॉक बन जाता है. बाकी जगह ब्लॉक नहीं है, इसका मतलब कोलेस्ट्रॉल के कारण नहीं है, वहाँ पे आर्टरी अंदर डैमेज होने के बाद कारण वहाँ पे ब्लॉक बन गया है. तो ये सब का कारण, पहला कारण है ये साल्ट सेंसिटिविटी है. ब्लैक अमेरिकन में ज़्यादा है, वैसा ही इंडियंस भी लगभग ऐसा ही है. 70% लोग हम साल्ट सेंसिटिव है. ऐसा नहीं कि साल्ट का और नुकसान नहीं है, ये एक नुकसान काफ़ी है. और बीपी जो न स्क्रैचिंग होता है तो बता दिया है. ये डायस्टोलिक में हार्ट फेलियर होता है, हमारा एक्टिविटी लिमिट हो जाता है, हम जी नहीं रहे हैं, हमारा मरने का समय डिले करते जा रहे हैं. ओके, सो ये स्ट्रोक्स जो होता है, डिस्फंक्शन के बीपी के कारण धीरे धीरे हमारा ब्रेन में छोटे छोटे आर्टरीज नष्ट हो रहे हैं, हमारा धीरे धीरे ब्रेन खत्म हो रहा है, बुलकनेस आने वाला है। ये साल्ट के कारण होता है। वाइट मैटर ग्रे मैटर दोनों लॉस होता है, दोनों का अलग अलग कारण है, बट अल्टीमेटली याददाश्त खो जाता है। ये वाला बीपी का सारण, ये वाला थोड़ा सा भी साल्ट लें कि 6 से 7 टाइम्स, 6 से 7% नहीं है, 600 से 700% ये है डेमेंशिया शुरू होता है बीपी के कारण। और इंडिया तो डायबिटिक कैपिटल है, और आप समझिए भी क्या, ये बीपी चलते चलते, हाइपरटेंशन चलते चलते साल्ट के कारण 10 से 30 साल के अंदर में डायबिटिक हो जाते हैं। इसका फार्मूला है ना C6H12O6 है, जो हमारा ग्लूकोज है, उसके साथ ऑक्सीजन मिक्स होता है तो कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड और वाटर तैयार होता है। सो जब हम साल्ट लेते हैं, वाटर का ज़रूरत शरीर वाटर चाहता है, तो इसलिए क्या करता है, ये ग्लूकोज को ब्रेक करके वाटर निकालता है। ग्लूकोज को ब्रेक करने के लिए स्टीरॉयड होना ज़रूरी है। ये स्टीरॉयड ज़्यादा प्रोड्यूस हो जाता है, डायबिटीज़, उसके कारण डायबिटीज़ हो जाता है। तो ये मोर ग्लूकोज आएगा तो मोर वाटर आता है, अब उसके कारण और प्रॉब्लम शुरू होते हैं। 1 ग्राम अगर आप साल्ट लेंगे, 2.5 गुना डायबिटीज का चांसेस बढ़ता है। और इसके साथ हम लोग जो भी साल्ट में है जो चीज़ है, वो उससे अलावा और अच्छा चीज़ जो है, हम लोग नट्स खाएं। हाँ, वो डायबिटीज के लिए भी अच्छा है। हार्ट प्रॉब्लम लगभग 30% कम हो जाता है, डायबिटिक प्रॉब्लम लगभग 40% कम होता है। तो ये वाला है, महात्मा गांधी जी ने 9 साल तक ये नट्स वगैरह खाए हैं, ऐसे रॉ डेट खाए हैं, और इससे लंग का फंक्शन भी 52% नुकसान जो होने का चीज़ है कम हो जाता है, इन्फेक्शन कम हो जाता है। हाँ, सो बीपी जो है हमारा, यनमामी इंडियंस में जो लोग साल्ट बिल्कुल नहीं खाते, एज के हिसाब से उनका बीपी नहीं बढ़ता, उनका वेट नहीं बढ़ता, उनका 90/60 बीपी है, वो नॉर्मल है। हम लोग को लो सोडियम इसलिए होता है, जैसे जो डायबिटिक बंदा है उसी को लो शुगर होता है, क्योंकि थोड़ा एक्सरसाइज ज़्यादा कर लिया या कम खा लिया या तकलीफ हो गया, तो लो ग्लूकोज होने का संभावना उन्हीं को होता है जो शुगर का मेडिसिन लेते हैं। इसी तरह ये लो सोडियम भी उन्हीं को होता है जो लोग शायद हार्ट प्रॉब्लम वाले हैं या बीपी प्रॉब्लम वाले हैं। ऐसे लोगों को, या दवा के कारण, साइड इफेक्ट के कारण, लाइक डायबिटिक साइड इफेक्ट के कारण, ऐसे कारण लो सोडियम हो सकता है। लगभग सबको लो सोडियम इसी कारण हो सकता है। लो सोडियम आमतौर पे नहीं होना नहीं चाहिए, क्योंकि हमको जो सोडियम चाहिए वो पर्याप्त मात्रा में नट्स में है, फ्रूट्स में है, और अपना जो खाना है उसमें भी है। और हमारा इंडिया में क्या है कि अब ये वाला हार्ट फंक्शन गड़बड़ होने के साथ वो आर्टरीज में ठीक से ब्लड फ्लो नहीं होता है, हार्ट मरमर भी शुरू होता है। जो ब्लॉक शरीर में हो सकता है वो आर्टरी ट्राइफर्केशन वगैरह वो जहाँ है वहाँ पे हार्ट में भी हो सकता है। इसके लिए क्या बोलते हैं, कोलेस्ट्रॉल कम होना ज़रूरी नहीं है। और बीपी जो है इंडिया में, इंडियन करोनरी आर्टरी डिसीज जो है 40 साल की उम्र के अंदर के लोगों में 12% है, और 55 साल के 50% लोगों को हार्ट अटैक होता है या करोनरी आर्टरी डिसीज होता है 55 साल के अंदर में। तो इसको तो हम प्रिवेंट कर ही सकते हैं। और लोगों को डाउट है आयोडीन डेफिशिएंसी है, ये कुछ प्रांत में कुछ जगह में आयोडीन डेफिशिएंसी होता है, लेकिन आजकल हम खाना खाते हैं या कुछ भी खाते हैं, फ्रूट्स खाते हैं, अपने खाने का सामग्री, पानी भी बाहर से आता है, कहीं दूसरी जगहों से आता है, हम दूसरा घूमते भी हैं, आयोडीन डेफिशिएंसी होने का संभावना लगभग कम है। और साल्ट नहीं लेने के कारण आयरन डेफिशिएंसी होता है, ये वाला सही नहीं है। डायबिटीज के लोग सारे फ्रूट खा सकते हैं, एक आधा फ्रूट में थोड़ा सा ग्लाइसेमिक इंडेक्स वेरिएशन होता है, लेकिन ये मैदा है या चावल है या ऐसे कार्बोहाइड्रेट फूड से है, उसके हिसाब मुकाबले में ये सारे फ्रूट अच्छे ही हैं। और लगभग कुल मिला के पूरा फ्रूट लेंगे, मतलब एक ही फ्रूट नहीं खाएंगे, पूरा कुल मिला के जो पीसेस फ्रूट लेंगे उनका लगभग पूरा मिला के वो क्या बोलते हैं, ग्लाइसेमिक इंडेक्स कम है, उसका लोड भी कम है। आप अमेरिकन डायबिटिक एसोसिएशन का साइट में जाके देखिए, ये वो फ्रूट्स में चाहिए अपने को, नट्स में चाहिए, और ये सब में पोटेशियम है, विटामिन है, ये ज़रूरी है डाइटरी में। बाकी चीज़ सही ज़रूरी नहीं है। एक डाइटरी सप्लीमेंट और विटामिन की बात आती है तो पहली बात यह है कि उसमें वो वाला विटामिन नहीं है जो वो लोग बात करते हैं। अगर हाई भी है तो हमारा शरीर हजम नहीं करता है, और हम सोचते हैं कि गलत तरीके से सोचते हैं कि हम विटामिन ले रहे हैं तो मेरे कुछ नहीं होगा, और गलत खा लेते हैं, उससे कोई फ़ायदा नहीं होगा। हर चीज़ हर तरीके से उसका नुकसान है। और ये विटामिन डी इंडिया में कम ही है, मतलब इसका कोई कारण नहीं हो सकता है कि ज़रूरी नहीं है। अगर विटामिन डी कम है उसके साथ साथ में कुछ और चीज़ प्रॉब्लम होना चाहिए, हीमोग्लोबिन कम होना चाहिए, अगर नहीं है और इसका टेस्ट कराना भी ज़रूरी नहीं है एज पर रिसर्च। और गावा नट्स फूड्स में सारा कुछ जो है न्यूट्रिएंट्स है वो अच्छा है। और ये जो कमी इसलिए होता है या कोई भी चीज़ इसलिए होता है क्योंकि हमारा डाइजेशन सिस्टम अफेक्ट हो गया दवाओं से। हाँ, जैसे मैंने बोला बीपी ऐसे लोगों की सोडियम डिफिशिएंसी हो सकता है। और ये मैदा राइस में वगैरह हाई शुगर हाई है, और आपको पता ही है कि ये सब लेना नहीं है। ये वाला दवाओं से जो बॉडी में नष्ट होता है, बोन मारो अफेक्ट होता है। कोई भी दवा ऐसा नहीं है कि उसका अफेक्ट कोई कुछ कम है, चलते चलते सारे दवाओं का अफेक्ट होगा, और उससे हमारा हीमोग्लोबिन और ब्लड पैरामीटर्स में फ़र्क आने लगेगा। और ये सब ऑयल घी ये सब चीज़ जो है ये वाला पूरा सैचुरेटेड फैट्स है। अगर नहीं भी है उसको एक बार उबालेंगे, इसके बाद यूज़ करेंगे, रीयूज़ नहीं करना है उसी ऑयल को, क्योंकि वो ऑलरेडी सैचुरेटेड हो गया है। और यूरिक एसिड की बात है तो ज़्यादा यूरिक एसिड प्रॉब्लम है मीट ईटर में, और अल्कोहल खास करके बीयर पीने वालों को होता है। और सो अनसाल्टेड डाइट हमारा फ्रूट्स एंड नट्स है वो दे दीजिए। एंड बीपी, डायबिटिक, स्मोकिंग, ये तीन चीज़ किडनी फेल्यूर में आता है। और एक बड़ा चीज़ है, और ये साल्ट के कई प्रॉब्लम है, अभी डायमेंशिया ब्लड करने से बात ही कर लिए हैं, और हार्ट फेल्यूर, हार्ट ब्लॉक्स की बात किए हैं, हार्ट एनलार्जमेंट के कारण कई प्रॉब्लम हो सकते हैं, डायस्टोलिक डिसफंक्शन की बात की हैं। और ये है नमक, हम लोग किडनी नमक फेंकता है वापस, नमक जो शरीर में जमा हुआ है उसको फेंकने के लिए किडनी एक्स्ट्रा काम करता है। वो किडनी अलग से सिर्फ नमक नहीं फेंकता है, और खिड़की खोलेगा नमक जाने के लिए, उसके साथ साथ अपना कैल्शियम और चीज़ भी जाएगा। तो कैल्शियम डिफिशियंसी इसलिए हो रहा है बॉडी में क्योंकि हम कैल्शियम नहीं खा रहे हैं, बल्कि क्योंकि ये साल्ट खा रहे हैं। साल्ट के कारण धीरे धीरे हमारा बोन्स में ऑस्टियोपोरोसिस मतलब बोन्स में वो कमी होते जा रहा है, चलते चलते फ्रैक्चर होने का संभावना। और जिनके भी नेक पेन है, बैक पेन है, नी पेन है, ये सब पेन जो है, ये लोग क्या करेंगे, साल्ट खाएंगे तो उनका कैल्शियम नष्ट हो रहा है। और कैल्शियम टैबलेट्स लेने से कोई फ़ायदा नहीं, उसकी जगह आप अमरूद खाइए, उसमें काफ़ी कुछ नॉट ओनली कैल्शियम है, उसके अंदर अदर विटामिन भी है, ऑल न्यूट्रिएंट्स कई चीज़ों में है। और विटामिन ए, सी, ये सब चीज़ तो ही है, सारा फ्रूट्स में है ही है। और ये ले लिए, और साल्ट नहीं खा सकते, आपको अच्छा नहीं हो टेस्ट के लिए, टेस्ट बनाने के लिए आप नींबू ऐसा चीज़ जो हम लोग यूज़ कर रहे हैं यूज़ करेंगे। लेकिन हमको क्या है, जीने के लिए खाना है, खाने के लिए जीना, ये दोनों समझिए आप, उसके परिणाम क्या है समझे। और हम 80% हम ये हृदय रोग से बच सकते हैं, स्ट्रोक से बच सकते हैं। ये वाला सिर्फ हृदय की बात ही नहीं है, हमारा ब्रेन नष्ट हो रहा है, याद रखिए। ये भी बात नहीं है हमारा किडनी पे लोड लग रहा है, ये भी बात नहीं है। सोचिए, आप देखा है कि हमारा ऑस्टियोपोरोसिस, कैल्शियम नष्ट हो रहा है, इसमें इतना चीज़ नष्ट हो गया है, और चलते चलते डायबिटिक आ रहा है नमक के कारण। और डायबिटिक सारे पूरा सिर से लेके पैर तक सारे बीमारियों का वो जड़ है। अब ये समझिए हैं। और ये यूरिक एसिड का मोरलेस क्या बोला गोट वगैरह का मोरलेस वेजिटेबल्स के कारण गोट होता करके कोई प्रमाण है ही नहीं है। लेकिन ज़्यादातर ये वाला अल्कोहल है और रेड मीट है, ये वाला से ज़्यादा ये गोट का प्रॉब्लम होता है। आप इन सब से बचिए। और ये बार बार ये वाला B12 और डी चेक करने का शायद ज़रूरत नहीं है। अगर ये वाला सच में प्रॉब्लम है, उसके साथ साथ में कुछ ना कुछ रेड ब्लड सेल्स या और हीमोग्लोबिन कम होना चाहिए, वो सब नहीं है, कोई सिम्टम नहीं है, तो क्यों चेक करें। हाँ, को बहुत कम केसेस में इसको चेक करने का शायद ज़रूरत है, कभी रेगुलर रूटीन में चेक करने का ज़रूरत है ही नहीं है। और क्या है, डायबिटिक काप्टेल है, उसको भी बचाना है। पहले तो हार्ट डिसीज करें, और हार्ट के साथ में जो ब्लॉक में आया तो इन्फेक्शन भी बढ़ता है ये साल्ट लेने से, तो आप इन सब से बचें। हाँ, इम्यूनिटी कम होता है, ऐसा है, और इसका रिसर्च है, saltkills.com में जाइए, देखिए। और ऐसा नहीं कि सिर्फ साल्ट नहीं, बाकी रिफाइंड प्रोडक्ट्स है, शुगर है, ये सब चीज़ है, सब खा के कोई फ़ायदा नहीं है। कुदरत का दिया हुआ फ्रूट्स है वो खाइए, नट्स खाइए, फ्रूट्स खाइए, ये सब खाइए, स्वस्थ रहिए। और बिना स्वस्थता का आप आध्यात्मिक साधना भी नहीं कर सकते हैं। आप सब लोग इससे जुड़े हुए हैं, और आपके जो भी सवाल है हम जवाब दे सकते हैं। इसके बारे में हार्ट के साथ साथ में कितने डिसीजेस है ऊपर से नीचे लिखा गया था एक लिस्ट, वो उसमें ये ऑस्टियोपोरोसिस भी है, क्या बोलता है, ये डिमेंशिया है, मतलब बुलक करने से आने का भी है, खास तौर पर इसमें ये वाला इन्फेक्शंस की संभावना है, सारा कुछ है, लंग्स अफेक्ट होता है, वाटर रिटेंशन होता है, ये वाला कारण सारे एक से बढ़कर एक डिसीज एक के बाद में उधर दिखाया गया है। अब हम उसको ऐसा नहीं जीना है, और तो हम नेचर की तरफ जाए और अपना स्वस्थता बढ़ाए और अपना उत्तरदायित्व निभाए। और ये ऐसा कोई दवा नहीं है जिसका साइड इफेक्ट नहीं है, ये वाला बड़ा प्रॉब्लम है। तो आप चूज कीजिए वेदर आपको टेस्ट के लिए खाना है या स्वस्थता के लिए खाना है, स्वस्थ होने के लिए खाना है या टेस्ट के लिए खाना है। टेस्ट के लिए खा सकते हैं, नहीं पता, स्वस्थता के लिए खाइए, उसको टेस्टली बनाइए, चल देगा, चलते चलते आदत हो जाएगा। एक बार आप साल्ट के बिना खाने का आदत हो गया है तो साल्ट डाले तो कड़वा लगने लगेगा। मैं बता रहा हूँ अपना एक्सपीरियंस है, थोड़ा भी साल्ट है लगता है इसमें कड़वा है, तो आप जो चीज़ को आदत कर लेंगे वो अच्छा होगा। आप सोचते हैं बस जीवन में स्वीट नहीं मिल रहा है, फ्रूट्स और नट्स में इतना सारा स्वीट है। पहले इंडिया में यही प्रॉब्लम था, तो लोग जो डायबिटिक थे उनको फ्रूट नहीं खाने देते। ये ज़रूरी नहीं है कि आपका शुगर नहीं बढ़ेगा फ्रूट खाने से, अगर बहुत देर सारा खाएंगे तो प्रॉब्लम होगा। लिमिटेड लिमिटेड क्वांटिटी में और पर्याप्त तरीके से खाएंगे। आपका हर एक का बॉडी अलग अलग है, उसके हिसाब से आप देख लीजिए। हर एक का क्या बोलते हैं मेटाबॉलिज्म अलग है। आपको अपना स्वस्थता मेंटेन करने के लिए कदम उठाए, और ख़ास करके देखिए आप अपना ब्लड पैरामीटर्स और अपना बॉडी मास इंडेक्स और हमारा चीज़ नियंत्रण में रखें। बीपी को नियंत्रण में ज़रूर रखें, उसको ज़रूर चेक करें, और आसानी से चेक कर सकते हैं आप रेगुलरली। और आपको डाउट है तो नमक बंद करके 5 दिन देखें तो क्या बीपी होता है, और उसके बाद में देख लीजिए क्या होता है, आपका चलने फिरने में कितना फ़ायदा होता है। आपका अगर एक हफ्ते में अगर नमक नहीं खाएंगे तो 1 डेढ़ 2 kg कम हो जाता है। इफ़ यू डोंट ईट सॉल्ट फॉर 1 वीक, 1 or 2 kgs weight will be reduced. We have seen this in ashram. So फ्रूट डाइट से पीपल डायबिटीज से बाहर निकले हैं। ये मिथ से निकल जाएगी कि फ्रूट डाइट से फ्रूट नहीं खाना है। आप खाना भी खाएंगे, फ्रूट भी खाएंगे तो तब डबल होगा। जब खाएंगे तो वो खाइए फिर, ठीक है ना। तो एनीवे अपना हेल्थ मेंटेन करने का उत्तरदायित्व तो आप निभाइए, तो अंधविश्वास से नहीं चलिए। और जो साइट्स हैं इतने सारे आते हैं उसके साथ नहीं जाइए। जो स्टैंडर्ड साइट्स हैं, जो ऑथेंटिकेटेड साइट से लेकर अमेरिकन डायबिटिक एसोसिएशन, ऐसा साइट में इंफॉर्मेशन लीजिए। मैं ज़्यादा आपका समय नहीं ले जाता है। थैंक यू वेरी मच, एंड वी थैंक डॉक्टर सुरेंद्र रेड्डी नरवेटला फॉर गिविंग सच ए patient hearing and answering so many questions. And we thank the audience also for being so patient and listening to us. And we are not ending here, it's the beginning only. We continue to support and help in resolving your issues to best of our ability. And future is dynamic, it's in your hand. Atma Namaste, take care. May the blessings of the Divine Supreme Being and through the Param Gurus and through the spiritual teacher who flood us, we be rooted up, rooted down, we be receptive for the healing. All the psychic contamination, psychic impression, disease, dirt energy, excess growth causing energy, malign energy, used up energy, dissipated with earth, whole sun, cactus, website, chakras, spiritual balanced, auras become subtle and beta bigger, dealing from negative influences completely. May we root out healed, be blessed with wisdom and discernment, understand the importance of present time and opportunity, understand the importance of maintaining good health and happiness, optimize the effort to accomplish great vision of bring peace and transformation, bring peace in our own self, our own environment, and in the entire earth by being aligned with the group and being asset for the group. And may our interactions be harmonious, purposeful, fruitful. May we bless our relationship, bless with peace, understanding, harmony, purpose, spirit of harmonious. May this group be blessed with group harmony, group closeness, group oneness, group success, group rhythm, group alignment. All our travels be blessed and protected. You be guided to right direction. We generate entitlement properly. by service and tithing, optimize effort, align with the group, become asset for the group, address one's own needs and others' needs, balance it, balance material spiritual aspects of life, take responsibility, maintain good and happiness. Harmonize conflicting factor, that's another big area. Without happiness, difficult to maintain good health. May all be blessed to go in right direction, may be divinely guided. May we fulfill our karmic obligation and also contribute substantially to bring peace and transformation in your environment and entire. So be it. Take care. Good night. Shab hai. Atma Namaste.